In episode 1, we saw why the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia targeted sport for global dominance. In golf, the kingdom did something that no one thought was possible. They tried to rewrite the rules entirely. Enter LIV Golf. Backed by the PIF, Saudi Arabia's $700 billion wealth fund, LIV Golf launched with a war chest of $2 billion. Overnight, players who'd spent decades chasing trophies on the PGA Tour were offered guaranteed contracts of $100 million, $150 million, even $200 million to defect.
The Saudi investment fund, which is bankrolling this golf series. What we're seeing is yet one more event in a series of sports washing exercises that the Saudi authorities are using to clean its blood-soaked image.
The result? Lawsuits, bans, fractured sport, and ultimately a deal which could change the fortunes of golf forever. Guys, I recorded this at the beginning of September. You're seeing this at the beginning of December. In the 3 months, things have changed. That's how fast the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia moves in the world of sport. Stick around to the very end. Make sure you don't miss the updates. I'm Jordan and I'm on a mission to bring the business of sport to 1 million people. So far on my platform, I've covered many sports, but one thing I haven't touched is Saudi Arabia's growing influence. This series is episodic, 1 episode per sport, and this is episode 2 on golf. We start though with the announcement of LIV Golf. Do you remember when Al Nassr announced the signing of Cristiano Ronaldo famously out of nowhere? Well, LIV Golf's equivalent was this man, Phil Mickelson, one of golf's biggest names, one of golf's best ever players, and now one of golf's most controversial figures. Reports suggested that Phil Mickelson was offered $200 million to leave the PGA and join LIV Golf. The crazy thing about this is that at the time, Phil Mickelson was the second highest paid golfer in golfing history, behind you-know-who Tiger Woods. Phil had career earnings of $96 million on the PGA Tour at the time. So to get $200 million to sign with LIV Golf at over 50 years old, yeah. Wild. But Phil was the first domino. Soon after came DJ, Dustin Johnson. At the time, he was still in his prime, a Masters champion and former world #1. His deal was said to be worth in the region of $150 million. Then came the wave of younger major winners. A beefed up hench Bryson DeChambeau came. He joined for a package believed to be $100 million. Brooks Koepka, 4-time major winner, he joined for a reported similar figure. And then in 2022, in my opinion, came the most symbolic move. Just weeks after winning the British Open, a 29-year-old young Cam Smith was lured away from the PGA Tour and reportedly signed with LIV for $100 million too. That's what made me take particular notice, and so did the rest of the golfing world. Each signing chipped away at the PGA Tour's authority. What started with one name snowballed into a mixture of Ryder Cup winners, household names, and golfing stars. It didn't end with Cam Smith. Former world #1 Sergio Garcia walked away and was lured by LIV Golf. So did Ian Poulter and Lee Westwood, European Ryder Cup legends. 2018 Masters champion Patrick Reed, Louis Oosthuizen. Henrik Stenson reportedly took $50 million to sign with LIV Golf. Stenson is a legend, Ryder Cup captain, but $50 million for Stenson. One by one, the names kept stacking up. By the end of its first season, LIV Golf had signed more than a dozen major champions and some Ryder Cup heroes along the way too. If you watched episode 1, you will know that I spoke to 2 problems that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia had that they were trying to fix. Golf had a problem too that LIV Golf was positioning itself as the answer to. Simply put, they argued that tradition had made golf boring. Golf tournaments are 4 days long. Fields have more than 100 players, many of whom never make the cut. Tee times are staggered, which means you could potentially watch golf for hours and not see the leaders swing a shot. LIV Golf promised something different, faster, flashier, and easier to consume for fans. Instead of 100+ player fields, just 48. Instead of 4-day tournaments, 3-day tournaments. Every event was 54 holes, which is where the name came from. LIV Golf is the Roman numerals for 54. That's the number of holes that they play, and also theoretically the perfect score in golf, birdieing every hole of a par 72. On top of that, everyone teed off at the same time. They call it a shotgun start, which means if you're watching, you always get to see action. This here follows on a similar theme from episode 1. Innovation. LIV Golf is an innovator, a disruptor, and maybe the most innovative thing LIV introduced was the concept of teams in golf. Don't worry, we're going to get back to that later. Each LIV Golf event carries a $25 million purse, which is bigger by some distance than every single tournament on the PGA Tour. The individual winner pockets $4 million. The team that won pockets another $3 million. And every player, regardless of where they finish, walks away with something. This was almost more than just a new tour. It's a complete rebrand of how golf looks today. In episode 1, I showed you the key figures behind Saudi Arabia's massive assault on global sports. The key figure for LIV Golf is Greg Norman, a 2-time major winner and a former world number 1. He's actually been pushing for a new golf tour since the 1990s. Just back then, he didn't have the muscle and the might to get it done. Decades later, Norman found the backing that he needed, the Saudi PIF. The project was greenlit through the PIF's governor, Yasser Al-Rumayyan, a very big golf fan and someone who would later become the chairman of LIV Golf. The timing was striking. Golf appeared the same as it always has been on the surface, but the population of fans was aging. And at the time, the sport was going through a bit of a streaming revolution. Try and cast your mind back to 2021. We were coming out of COVID, but whilst we were inside, the world was pretty much gripped to ESPN's The Last Dance. Formula One had ballooned in popularity with the success of Drive to Survive, and football clubs were being snapped up by private investors and sovereign wealth funds. Golf was not doing anything. Enter Greg Norman. He positioned himself as the innovator. He called the PGA Tour monopolistic, and he described LIV as the way to modernize golf. Interestingly, in one interview, Norman admitted that he didn't have the final say. The Saudis call the shots, he said. But behind closed doors, there was a sense of momentum. Mickelson famously admitted that the Saudis were scary motherfuckers in an interview in 2022. But he also said the money was too good to ignore. Fair enough. That mixture of financial power, cultural timing, and Greg Norman's persistence created the perfect storm. And the tipping point came in June of 2022, LIV Golf's first event. It was hosted in the UK at Centurion Club, and many people were speculating as to who was going to join. And there it was, an immediate impact. Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, Sergio Garcia, and a raft of others were there on the first tee. Inside Centurion were some of the best players golf had ever seen, but outside, the protesters were loud. Families of the 9/11 victims were writing open letters condemning the players for taking Saudi money. And inside golf, the PGA Tour, they got busy. They immediately banned anyone who had defected to LIV from ever playing a PGA Tour tournament. Well, there was one thing that London event proved. LIV Golf was real. The culture of professional golf had shifted overnight. Now, on the surface, LIV Golf felt unstoppable. Fantastic players, a lot of financial backing, and a pretty good, slick new product. But the business model was weak. Let me break it down for you. The PGA Tour makes $1.5 billion every single year. In fact, this is a graph showing the revenues the PGA Tour has made every year over the last decade. As you can see, it's up and it's to the right. Broadcast revenues count for almost half of this. $700 million comes from a mixture of CBS, ESPN, NBC, and international partners. Sponsorships add $450 million annually too. MasterCard, FedEx, Rolex, just to name a few tier 1 partners that pay big money to be aligned with the prestigious golfing tour. Ticket sales, hospitality, and licensing round out the end of the pie, again proving a consistent, sustainable business model for the PGA. LIV had none of that. It had almost no commercial traction in its first few seasons. Tournaments were streamed for free on YouTube and Facebook. Even with free streaming available, the opening tournament in London drew 800,000 viewers around the world. A PGA Tour Sunday broadcast would often have 2 to 3 million people watching, behind a pretty expensive paywall on cable TV. Sponsorships were also non-existent, where the PGA Tour leans on maybe 30 corporate partners. LIV's teams and LIV's events were pretty much entirely funded by the Saudi PIF. In 2023, they signed a breakthrough broadcast deal with the CW network in the US. It took a few seasons, but even that deal reportedly had no rights fee. It was just a revenue share model where LIV even covered some of the production fees. Ratings were modest. Some events had less than 300,000 viewers. The contrast couldn't really be bigger. PGA is an established, sustainable business been going for decades. LIV looked like a Saudi-backed experiment that was just getting going. Like I mentioned before, within days of the London opening event, the PGA Tour said any player that had signed for LIV Golf was not welcome on the PGA Tour. If you're on that side, you ain't coming over here. It's actually quite mad what they did. They basically said, are you Kendrick or are you Drake? Are you LIV or you PGA? Pledge your allegiance right now. And they said, if you're over there, there's no PGA Tour card, there's no FedEx Tour points, and it probably impact your ability to play in the Ryder Cup. Big names like Dustin Johnson, Sergio Garcia, Phil Mickelson, they said, sure, I got 100 million reasons to go over here. But they walked away from the exact tour that they'd built their careers on. The PGA then went on the offensive financially. Prize purses were boosted overnight on the PGA Tour. Tournaments like the Arnold Palmer Invitational, the Genesis Invitational, the Memorial, they saw their prize purses boosted to $20 million. Still short of the $25 million that you get for every LIV Golf event, but an increase nonetheless. Those events then saw stronger fields. The PGA concentrated its best tournaments and made them more lucrative. Players were also protected by the Player Impact Program. That was created to reward the players that drove the most engagement and attention to the tour itself. If you've watched my channel before, you'll know I did a video on Rory McIlroy. He was one of the PGA Tour's most vocal defenders, and he won the Player Impact Program in one of its first years. He pocketed $15 million. It was the PGA Tour's way of rewarding loyalty and keeping its most marketable players from being lured away. However, LIV hit back. It filed an antitrust lawsuit against the PGA Tour, accusing them of running a monopoly and using strong-arming tactics to crush a competitor. The PGA Tour countersued and said that LIV Golf was forcing players to breach their contracts. This shit was messy. Could a sport this traditional survive a civil war? Could the PGA outlast the deep pockets of LIV Golf? No one knew it at the time, but the answer would come in the most unimaginable way possible. The same sides hurling insults and lawsuits at each other were secretly forming a merger behind the scenes. The response to the Saudi series has been phenomenal. I'm over the moon that you're enjoying this content, so thank you to anyone who's watched, commented, liked, or subscribed. Before we continue, it blows my mind how many people watch these videos that aren't subscribed to this channel. So if you're one of those people, please hit the subscribe button right now. But if you're like me and you love information like this, then go to thelongplay.co.uk where you can get more. Not only can you subscribe to the newsletter where you can get a weekly article brought to your inbox every Monday at 11 AM, you can join the community. Community members get all the episodes of the Saudi series. They get more access to me and they get more information from every single video that I put out. Now, I'm gonna get back to LIV Golf. We have to talk about the merger, but before then, the thing that really plagued me about this whole thing was that there was no one winning. For the PGA Tour, the fight meant losing control. They had always dictated the terms of professional golf and they were looking vulnerable. For LIV, they were sinking billions into a new tournament that had very little traction. Without Saudi money, this project would have collapsed within months. For the players, yes, everyone became richer. PGA players saw prize money increase. LIV Golf players got life-changing contracts. But LIV players were under the cosh in every single press conference, facing questions about morality. For veterans like Mickelson, reputations were tarnished. For major stars like Cam Smith, their major wins were questions after the immediate decision to defect. For the remaining PGA Tour players, they knew that they were winning tournaments without the entire field being present. And for us, the fans, the product got weaker. The best players in the world were no longer competing in the same fields week in, week out. A PGA Tour event without DJ, Brooks, or Bryson just didn't have the same luster. A LIV event without Scheffler, Morikawa, and McIlroy lacked legitimacy. The sport was fractured and no one was really claiming the higher ground. And that's when the unthinkable happened. In June 2023, I remember waking up one day, going on my phone and seeing the PGA Tour and LIV Golf had announced a merger. It was one of those moments in my life where I literally looked at my phone and went, what? The two factions announced that they would merge under a framework backed by the Saudi Arabia's PIF. Nobody saw it coming. Not the media, not me, not the fans. Even Rory McIlroy said that he only found out about it a few hours before it was announced. Players who went to LIV felt a bit blindsided. It felt like a betrayal. The details were vague, but one thing was apparent. All the lawsuits would be dropped. A new for-profit entity would be formed, with Yasser Al-Rumayyan, the PIF governor, announced as chairman. Yasser Al-Rumayyan. He's a gangster. But here's the reality. 2 years on, in fact, I'm recording this video at the beginning of September 2025, not really much has changed. The framework was just that, a framework. Regulators were pushed back, negotiations carried on, and professional golf has been stuck in the same limbo for a while. In the meantime, LIV kept spending. In late 2023, they pulled off their biggest signing yet, this man, Jon Rahm. At the time, he was the reigning Masters champion and the world number 3. He accepted a check that was reported to be worth, hold on, let me see it up straight. $300 million to sign with LIV Golf. John, well played, sir. Rahm's decision to move to LIV underlines how much hadn't actually changed after the announcement of the merger. And it was just another player, an amazing player that golf fans couldn't see on the PGA Tour. Now, for all the controversy, it is worth pointing out that LIV has added an element of innovation to golf that has never been seen before. We'll get back to the teams later, but the team concept is fantastic. They've also tapped into content creators and YouTubers to distribute highlights and to create a level of engagement that golf has never seen before. And in some markets, like Australia, the atmosphere at the tournaments have been electric. Crowds have turned a golfing tournament into somewhat of a festival, which rivals what you see at a Ryder Cup event. Even Hollywood has taken notice. Have you seen Happy Gilmore 2? That film is essentially LIV Golf in movie form. But innovation is only half of the story because financially LIV Golf is so far behind. Revenues at the PGA Tour have held steady even though some of the players have left, whereas LIV is struggling. The number varies, but many reports say LIV has burned through $5 billion in its venture so far. A reminder that Saudi Arabia is paying heavily for this disruption. So that stalemate raises two final questions. What exactly is LIV Golf building that is new beyond the money? And the second is, how does this ever become sustainable, either on its own or alongside the PGA Tour? The first answer lies with its biggest innovation: the teams. There are 12 teams, each with their own name, logo, and 4-player roster. Captains are not just players, they are equity owners. Dustin Johnson leads the 4 Aces. Sergio Garcia leads the Fireballs. Phil Mickelson has the High Flyers. Bryson runs the Crushers. Brooks runs Smash. These teams are businesses in their own right. The model is taken from Formula One and from football. These teams are meant to attract their own sponsors, rotate players between them, and engage their own fans. They sell kits, they sell merch, and some players have either been dropped or re-signed depending on performance. Sponsors have also started to arrive. John Rahm got a team when he signed for big money. Grayson Clothiers announced a partnership with his team. Ping put its name on Team Talk. Reebok partnered with Bryson's Crushers. HSBC have announced a deal with the Crushers too, along with the other team, Majestics. The numbers have not reached the heights of the PGA or, of course, with football teams, but there's interest there at the very least. The principle is there. Teams can generate their own commercial income, and it's separate from prize money. If these teams start to generate $5, $10, $15 million a year in sponsorship revenue, then the valuations will balloon. There's equity value being built. It's a new ownership model in golf, and I like it. The crazy thing is, at the end of the 2024 season, the team tournament finale was fantastic. It was amazing to watch. It was the first glimpse of what LIV could be if it found its footing. But that is the problem, the footing is not secure. The broadcast deal with the CW network is weak. The sponsors are around, but they're small in value. And the PGA Tour hasn't really been impacted, even though some of the biggest players aren't there anymore. So what does the path to sustainability look like? I see 2 scenarios. The first is independence. LIV continues to scale commercially. They get a proper broadcast deal, proper, with stronger partners across the US, Europe, and of course in Asia. They fill courses with not just hospitality tickets, but general admission tickets, and sponsors pile in, not just with teams, but at the events themselves. If that happens, then the billions that have been spent so far could maybe just be written off as seed investments. The second path is integration. The truce or the merger or whatever they agreed in 2023 actually takes shape and everyone comes back together. A unified calendar that allows LIV Golf players and PGA players to play on the same tour again, but keeping the team format. That would be an amazing outcome. Both have obstacles. Independence requires time, patience, and scale. I guess Saudi Arabia have the funds to do it, but for how much longer? Integration requires the PGA to accept that it no longer controls the sport that it has done for decades. For now, golf sits in limbo. Time will tell if LIV becomes a fully fledged, established golfing entity, or if it fizzles away as a Saudi-backed, expensive sporting experiment. Guys, that was me in September. Since then, 3 things have happened. And we're going to start with the money, because the money is the most fascinating part of it all. In October 2025, LIV Golf published their financial accounts. LIV Golf UK is the UK arm of LIV Golf, and they file their accounts on Companies House, so nerds like me can see them. The updated financials are unbelievable. Revenue for the year was $65 million, which, isn't enough, but it's not bad. But it gets significantly worse when you see the costs, because LIV Golf UK lost $460 million in the financial year. It's insane. But that isn't the craziest thing that came out of the published accounts. There was a line in there, and it said, and I quote, "Across the LIV Golf investment structure, the PIF has now increased the share capital to $4.9 billion. That number is essentially the total bill that LIV Golf has incurred since it began in 2022. Earlier on in the video, I mentioned that total spending had reportedly reached $5 billion. Well, these accounts confirm it to be true. $4.9 billion in just 3 seasons. That's a lot of money to spend on a sporting product that bluntly has no short or medium term path to profitability. It's incredible. But we continue. Henrik Stenson, remember him? I mentioned him earlier on in the video. This season at LIV Golf, he has been relegated. Yes, it's possible. The LIV Golf structure means that if you are one of the worst performing players across the season, you can enter the drop zone. And if you don't make it, you can get relegated from LIV Golf and drop out of the tournament altogether. Henrik Stenson finished 49th, which means he's out of the league. And he paid some fines and is going back to the European DP World Tour next season. He's still a good player. He's not retiring. But what that said to me was, damn, In 2022, I collected almost $50 million to come and play for LIV. I played for 3 seasons, and now I'm back on the European tour. It's a pretty nice 3-year, $50 million contract. I know there's probably some players on the European tour thinking, I should have gone to. All right, and the next update, and this one is big. This one made me add more to this video. LIV Golf will no longer be 54 holes. Yes, from 2026 and beyond, LIV Golf will move from 54 holes to 72 holes. At the beginning of this video, I gave you the breakdown. LIV Golf, 54 in Roman numerals, 54 holes played. Well, to align more with the PGA Tour and traditional golf tournaments, it's changing to 72 holes. The reason is to try and secure legitimacy. The official World Golf Rankings rejected LIV Golf's application in 2023. One of the key objections was the 54-hole format, and players have been tumbling down the world rankings as a result. To put that into perspective, Jon Rahm, currently at the time of recording this video, yes, in November, not September, is 76th in the world. Bryson DeChambeau is 25th in the world. As we saw, in the Ryder Cup of 2025, Jon Rahm is not the 76th best player on this planet. Bryson is not the 25th. They're both better than that. Jon Rahm said the move tests us fully. Dustin Johnson said 72 holes feels more like big tournaments. And Bryson, he said what everyone knows already. Everyone wants a path back to the majors. Like I've said for this entire video, LIV was founded on innovation. 54 holes, shotgun starts, team format, festival atmosphere. Changing from 54 to 72, it feels more legitimate, but it takes away some of the novelty and identity that LIV came with. It dilutes the disruption. If LIV starts to look more like the PGA Tour, does the point of LIV start to fade? So 3 pretty major things have happened in the last 3 months since I recorded the initial video that you just watched. The 2 major ones, the publishing of the financial accounts and the change from 54 to 72. Despite those things, my conclusion still remains similar. I am hopeful for the sport of golf because I genuinely think LIV have brought innovation to the sport. I'll say it again, the team element works. The production works. The leveraging of YouTubers and content creation works. And now they have a broadcast deal with Fox that should bring more awareness. But under the leadership of Scott O'Neill, not Greg Norman anymore, and the shift from 54 holes to 72 holes, I can't help but feel we are watching the most expensive gamble in the history of golf. And no one, not the PGA, not LIV themselves, not the fans, and certainly not me, knows how it's going to end. Click right here to watch episode 1 of the Saudi series. If you love insights like this, go to thelongplay.co.uk and explore becoming a member. Remember, members get more. I'm Jordan. Episode 3 up next.